All right, folks, it is that time. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to be talking all about micro internships from the career launcher perspective. A career launcher is the term we use at Parker Dewey for you, the students and recent grads who are looking for these opportunities. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morawski. I am the partner engagement specialist for Parker Dewey, and I am excited to jump on into it. So let's get started. All right. So first, I want to acknowledge that some of the challenges that you all may be facing as students and recent grads, we have a poll that I'm going to launch right now so you can contribute. Maybe you are experiencing some of these challenges. On the screen right now, you can see some of the challenges that some of the career launchers who have used the platform have reported to us they're facing. So some of the options you'll see are maybe you don't know what you want to do, so you're hesitant to commit to an entire internship when you're like, I don't know if I want to spend a full semester doing this. Maybe you are interested in something that doesn't have opportunities physically located near you, or you don't have transportation, even if something's not way out there, maybe you just don't have a way to get to it. Maybe you've been applying to opportunities, but you're having trouble getting selected, or just simply don't have enough time or can't afford to take an unpaid internship. So we want to start by saying these are not issues that you are alone in experiencing. And I'm excited to tell you how micro internships can help you address a lot of these, if not all. So let's get started. What is a micro internship? First of all, one of the key differences is the duration. So opposed to that traditional internship where you're doing a full semester, fall, spring, summer, whatever it is, a micro internship is all about an individual project. So these are the same types of projects that you would get as a traditional intern, or maybe even as a full-time hire. They are still professional projects, but the micro internship just spans the duration of that specific project. Now, we find that that tends to be around 10 to 40 hours, but there's really nothing magic about those numbers. It really depends on the scale and the demands of that specific project. The other thing about these that is really exciting to us and definitely answers that struggle of what if I can't afford to take an unpaid internship is that every single opportunity on the Parker Dewey platform is paid. And not only are they paid, but they are paid at a fair rate at typically $15 per estimated hour, if not better. We tend to see around that $20 per estimated hour mark. I say per estimated hour because every project is paid a fee per that project, not necessarily per hour. So you don't have to keep track of your hours, but we have an estimated hour count for you. So you have a basic idea of how many hours it should take you for such a project. And the other thing that makes these really accessible for you, if you're struggling with transportation or if you're interested in something that doesn't have opportunities near you, is that the vast majority of opportunities on the Parker Dewey platform are remote, which means you can do these from wherever you are, and you can do them from your couch, your kitchen table, your bed, wherever you work best. They're also comprehensive, so we see projects from all sorts of different industries, from all sorts of different departments. So regardless of what you're interested in, there's a good chance if you keep logging in, you're going to find a project that is of interest to you on Parker Dewey. So now that we know what micro internships are, I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the different projects that we tend to see most frequently, but also want to clarify these are by no means limits. Like I just said, we see projects from every single industry, every single department. So while these are some of the projects we tend to see most often, they are by no means the only projects that we see. I'd say probably the biggest mistake I see students and recent grads doing on Parker Dewey is they log in once and maybe they don't see something that is of interest to them in that day, and then they never log in again. Opportunities on Parker Dewey go very quickly. We'll talk a little bit more about why as the presentation goes on, but you want to make sure that you are logging in regularly because what you see on the platform today may look like this, and what you see on the platform today may have entirely different opportunities. So hopefully now that I've explained what micro internships are, you've got a good idea of the benefits, but really just want to break them down. These projects are accessible to you and they're professional projects. So you're going to be building experience on your resume. So as you go forth and look towards those traditional internships, micro internships might be a great way to get that second look on your resume and to get more attention for those opportunities down the line as well. They're also flexible. You are going to be working directly with the company if selected for a micro internship. So this is a great way to expand your professional network. And it also gives you that flexible opportunity to explore. You don't have to commit an entire semester something to realize a week in, this may not be it for me. you get to dip your toe into the water of a few different things if that's what you decide you want to do. This is also great for building your resume and your portfolio. And while it's never guaranteed, there are a decent number of companies using micro-internships to audition for longer-term roles. So maybe saying, we're going to use this project to see if someone might be a good fit for our traditional internship or even a full-time opportunity. And we're going to share some examples of some success stories too, where exactly that has happened. And finally, the pay is important as well. So who can complete micro-internships? As long as you're 18 years old, students or alumni, we're never going to kick you off the platform, but we will say that these projects tend to be of most benefit to students or recent grads, or if you're perhaps making a career switch. Once you're a good ways into your career, you'll find that the pay or the types of projects might not be as appealing to you as they are now as a student or a recent grad or somebody who is embarking on a new career field. International students are also welcome to do micro-internships and able to, as well as undocumented students with a valid ITIN number. So we're open to a wide range. So hopefully you're excited to get started on these projects. And now I want to start digging into how it works. Really as simple as 3 steps. First step is going to be creating that profile, then applying to those projects of interest, and then completing those projects. So before we dig into exactly what each of those steps look like, I want to talk a little bit about our role, Parker Dewey's role. We're here along every step of the way to make sure that those projects are professional and that they're paid fairly. So when you're on the platform, you shouldn't be seeing anything that won't be a benefit to a career launcher in their potential professional long-term goals. We're also here, we are actually the employer of record for all of these projects. So when you get paid, you will be paid by Parker Dewey. If you have questions, you will be connected directly with the company so you can ask them, but we are also a resource too. So you can ask questions of us as well. And we also have materials that we'll talk about a little bit later too to support your success. So now that we've done an overview and talked about Parker Dewey's role, let's talk about that process of creating an account. So you're going to hit view apply to a micro internship. Now you can do this either from our main career launcher page, or you can access it from your own institution's page if your institution is a partner. I want to make it clear right now that regardless of whether you are from a partner institution or not, you are able to use Parker Dewey. We are an open source platform, kind of like LinkedIn. And then you are going to want to put in your email address and then start creating that profile. So I'm going to dig into my actual student profile here to kind of show you what these different pieces look like. And there's not a lot of information that is required before you start to dig in to look at the actual opportunities. In terms of what is required, we do ask that you add education. And the reason for that is because companies have the ability to feature a project specifically to certain institutions. So if you want to be able to access those projects that might be exclusive to your school, you need to have your education. And that's why we require that as part of your profile. We also require for you to answer these questions about your demographics, because part of our goals at Parker Dewey is to make sure that we are doing a good job of making that college to career gap more accessible, more equitable. Now, to be clear, the people who review your applications, only the applications or the projects you apply to are going to be able to see your application, and they are never going to see your response to these demographic sections. That is not going to be attached to the profile that they see. This is just for us at Parker Dewey to be able to know how well we are doing with our goal of expanding that access and equity, and to be able to report numbers like the fact that 80% of the students and recent grads who are selected for projects are from underrepresented populations in the workforce. And if you select, you do have the option to choose prefer not to disclose. And really, that is it when it comes to what is required to start looking for opportunities. Now, I want to clarify, there are a lot of things we recommend that you do to have your best chance of being selected for a project. And we'll dig into those more in just a minute. But from here, you can start looking at those projects. Now, I also want to highlight, if you're an international student, be sure to check that box at the bottom, just because international students do have some additional considerations if they're selected for a project. And we want to be able to make sure that we are offering you any additional guidance that you might need, or encouraging you more aptly to meet with your international services office so they can give you the guidance that you need. We already talked about demographics and the reasons that that is there, but also want to highlight that that is where you're able to add affiliations. Now, if you are a student athlete or an honor student or something like that, this is where you can add that because companies also have the opportunity to feature projects exclusively to those populations. We also have a number of partners that have various purposes. I encourage you to check these out as well. I'm going to send out these slides afterwards so you can see perhaps you have an affiliation or you're already working with one of these organizations in one way. If that's the case, you are encouraged to add that affiliation to your profile. So any opportunities that are featured exclusively to those who have that affiliation will be visible to you. All right, so like I said, from there, you are able to hop into looking at opportunities. Just want to show this is where you can go to the dashboard to start looking at that. But at any time, you can jump back into your profile to start making changes. So want to talk now about some of these tips for success before we dig into the opportunities for making sure your profile is really standing out. One is to make sure you upload a professional picture. It just does a little bit something extra to make your profile more approachable, more personable. Next is to draft a concise personal statement that reflects some of your strengths and goals. So here in my example profile, I'm going to go down to this preview where you can kind of get an idea of what a company would see if you applied to their project. You can see my personal statement. I'm an organized, efficient, ambitious marketing major with a passion for social media, seeking to help companies create content and engage customers. So there's kind of a formula to this, and you don't have to follow the formula, but if you're struggling with your own personal statement, this might help. I usually like to follow what are 3 adjectives that describe me and that are going to be relevant to projects. So in the poll right now, what you'll see is a few different adjectives that you might consider using, and I want you to consider which one of those adjectives maybe isn't the best fit. Your options are going to be ambitious, nice, creative, detail-oriented, process-minded, or analytical. So seeing from the responses, most of you are identifying, yes, the one that would not necessarily be a good fit is nice. And the reason for that is it's great for someone to be nice, it's great for someone to be friendly, but most companies are going to be more concerned about the skills that are relevant to the project that you're going to be working on. Now, if this is a project that is going to involve, reaching out to people and forming connections, you might say communicative, you might say outgoing, but you want to try to pick adjectives that are specific and relevant to the types of projects that you're interested in. Then you want to try and clarify an asset. So in this case, with a passion for social media. If you're looking for computer science projects, you might say with a knowledge of, and then list some computer coding languages. If you're applying for a project doing translations, you might say fluent in and list some of your languages. But you want to list some of your assets and then share some of your goals. So that's a little bit of a formula for sharing your personal statement. Hopefully that is helpful. And then just a reminder, companies are going to be able to see this information if you apply to one of their projects. So be thoughtful about it. In your experience section, you have the opportunity to include experiences that are relevant to the projects that interest you. Everything you do from your profile, do it with the perspective of, if I was a company, what would I think about this? So adding those experiences can help you stand out. And just a quick note, if you add multiple experiences, they're going to be added in a way where your most recent experience is going to be on the top. Then you get to your resume section. So unlike other opportunities where you may need to customize your resume for every single application, and for other opportunities that is still recommended. I worked in career services before I worked for Parker Dewey. But for Parker Dewey, you actually only have the opportunity to upload one resume to your profile. So we highly recommend making one resume with broad appeal that is relevant to lots of different types of projects that you might be interested in. In this resume section, you'll also have the opportunity to clarify what availability you have. So like I mentioned earlier, there are companies that use micro-internships to determine whether someone might be a good fit for a longer-term opportunity, whether it's full-time work or an internship. So by clarifying what type of availability you have, if they're using a micro-internship for that purpose, this lets them know if you might be a good fit for that. And if you share links to personal websites or social media pages, just make sure they are professional. And then moving on to the document section. So this is not required, but it's a really great opportunity if you have documents that show off some of your skills to put them out there. So for example, if you're a marketing major and you've put together a flyer for some sort of event or promotional piece you've done, this could be a great place to share some of that. So these are just some of the tips for profile success we wanted to share, but we also want to highlight we have a career launcher tutorial with lots of tips and tricks for all different stages of being a Parker Dewey micro-intern. So this is linked to in the slides as well, which again, I will share. So encourage you to check that out too. All right, scooting right along. So let's jump into actually looking at micro internships. So I am now going to go back to my test account and I'm going to start looking at projects. So I'm going back to my dashboard and you can see all these different types of opportunities. So it's very easy to scroll through quickly and kind of take a quick glance at these opportunities. And you'll notice up front, there's not a lot in the way of filters. You can't filter by major. You can't filter by, looking for freshmen or sophomores or juniors or anything like that. And the reason is we want you to use this as a career exploration tool. And we found that if there are too many filters, then it's too easy for you to miss out on opportunities that could really use your skills, but the filters might not catch. So if you see a title that catches your eye, it's very easy to hit this drop down to menu with details. And over here on the left is where you're going to see that important information, the information I encourage you to look at first, because it's going to tell you when they're hoping for this project to start, when they're hoping for it to get done, so you can get an idea of, okay, will my schedule allow for that? Roughly how many hours the project is going to be. Again, each of these projects are paid per project, but we like to give you an idea of how many hours, whether the project is on-site or remote, and then how much you would be paid if you were selected for the project. Now, if you decide this project is of interest to you, it's very easy to click this button and apply. So, unlike other opportunities, you don't need to write a long cover letter. What you see here is the entirety of the application process. You are always going to get this question, why do you think we should select you for this opportunity? Now, every company handles micro internships differently. Some companies will have these short answer responses be the only thing they make their decision based on. So they'll look at it and they'll go, okay, we are leaning towards Christine. Let's reach out to her and hire her for this project. Other companies will look at the short answer responses and say, okay, we're thinking Christine, let's go ahead and have an interview to make sure it's a fit before selecting them. And then others will look at the short answer responses and say, okay, let's do interviews with our top 3. It could go any one of those ways, but I bring this up to say that these short answer responses may be your only opportunity to make an impression, and they're not time consuming. So you want to make sure that you put some thought into these. So we see the second question here. Have you ever done mystery shopping before? Any questions past this first one are going to be customized questions added by the company. So you want to put thought into these. I'm going to put another poll here. If you were applying to this micro internship, which of the below responses would you choose? No, I've not done mystery shopping before. No, or while I haven't done mystery shopping, I have experience critically thinking about the user experience. In the marketing course I took last semester, we reviewed 4 sites in the same industry too. Imagine that answer goes on to finish the thought. So we're seeing from the chat here, seeing from the poll, most people are selecting that final response, and that is entirely right. Because the same process or the same thought is reflected in all 3. This candidate hasn't necessarily done mystery shopping before, but that third answer goes a little bit further to say, well, while I haven't done this, I have done something that's relevant here. So you really want to make sure that you take that time and put that thought into your response, because something that is that simple can help you stand out and perhaps be selected for this project and make that little bit of extra money in your pocket while adding that experience to your resume. All right, scooting right along here. So now that we've talked about how to look at the available micro internships and apply and what to look for in those projects, just want to review a couple other tips for short answer responses, because again, your answers matter. We have resources, both in terms of a blog post, encouraging you how to think about answering these questions, how to show as opposed to tell, making sure that you're using specific examples. But if you're like me and you just want to see examples, we also have real responses that students have submitted to various projects, as well as feedback saying, the way that they expressed a passion here probably played a role in why they were selected for this project. Whereas the fact that they had misspelled words and did everything in all caps probably played a role in why they weren't selected. So hopefully these examples are also helpful when you're applying for micro internships in determining how to put your best foot forward and increase your likelihood of being selected for a project. And we just want to make sure that you also get to see the company's view. Very similar to what we just saw from the student side of things. Instead of looking through opportunities, they're going to get to look through their applicants. And it's very easy for them to hit that detail drop-down button. And that's where they're going to see your short answer responses. So like we said earlier, they're able to see the other information in your profile, but the emphasis is really put on those short answer responses. So I know I've said it already, but I can't say it enough. While you don't need to put a ton of time, you do want to make sure you're putting thought into those. And if you're struggling, or if you have questions, or if you just want someone to review, we do have once a month student office hours, as long as there is interest. So you're welcome to come to those. Keep an eye out for your student newsletter version of Higher Learnings. That's our monthly newsletter, to see when the next one is going to be coming. So now I want to cover how to navigate the Parker Dewey platform. We've already showed how to create your profile, how to update your profile, how to look for those opportunities. But let's say you started to applying and you want to know where to look for the different projects that you've looked for. We've already looked that first tab. Let me get back to my example profile here. This first tab is where you're going to look for opportunities. This is where all those open, available micro internships are hanging out. And I know I already said it before, but again, these change regularly. So the projects you see on here today might be very different from the projects you see on here tomorrow. So we encourage you, as you can see, this one is hopefully going to be kicking off today or tomorrow. So it probably isn't going to be here tomorrow. So make sure you log in and check it out often. Applied is where you are going to see any projects that you have applied for, but have not been selected for yet, and are still being considered for. If you are no longer being considered for that project, if somebody else has been selected, you will see that project disappear from your applied section. Hired is where you will see projects that you have been selected for, pretty self-explanatory, and completed is pretty intuitive as well. This is where you will see projects that you have been selected for and finished. This is also where you will look for feedback from the company once you have completed that project. Now, once selected for a Parker Dewey Micro-Internship, you will be connected directly with the company. So you will be able to have that engagement, have that networking opportunity. But before you are selected, if a company has any questions about your application or anything along those lines, they have the opportunity to message you within the platform. All right, so let's say you are selected for the project. You may be wondering, well, what do I do first? How do I get started? You will hear from us to let you know and send you the kickoff materials. And these are going to include the contact information for the company, referred to as the client, accounting forms, because we want to make sure that we can get you paid when that project is completed, terms of use with some additional details, as well as best practices, because we want you to be successful in this project. If you are curious about how you will know what to do, we want to make sure you are reminded that you are not alone in this process. You are going to be connected with the company. You'll have a micro-internship supervisor, and you'll have a kickoff meeting. Perhaps it'll be an email with a lot of details, or perhaps it'll be a Zoom meeting or a phone call, but they will provide you with additional context and information, essentially whatever you need to be able to complete the project that they are looking to have done. But you can also reach out to faculty, staff, alumni, or our resources. These are all great contexts to be able to say, you know, I'm thinking of attacking a project this way. Do you have any thoughts? So don't forget, as you're working on these projects, to companies know that these are students, these are recent grads, and to some extent, there's a bit of a learning experience. So don't forget to use your resources as you're attacking these projects. If you need help, we're also here to assist. So if for any reason you're struggling to get in contact with your supervisor, or if you're just not sure how to handle something, or just some other question, we're here to assist as well. And then another very important question: when do I get paid? Parker Dewey processes payroll once a month at the end of each month, typically. So you will get paid at the end of the month in which you completed the project. Now, we know that students and recent grads are using these projects and the pay for a variety of reasons, sometimes even to afford tuition. So if for some reason the end of the month is a little bit far out, there's also a form you can fill out to request, as long as you've completed the project, to perhaps move that pay up a little bit earlier. And those details, as well as other pay questions, can be seen in our pay FAQs, which are linked to. Again, I'll be sending out these slides. All right, so we have moved on to suggestions for success on the job, because we want you all to be as successful as possible. Not only do we want you to get paid experience, but we want you to make a great impression, because again, sometimes these opportunities can lead to something longer term. And even if it's not something longer term with this specific company, these companies talk to each other, and your supervisor might introduce you to another opportunity elsewhere. So as far as putting your best foot forward goes, you really want to make sure that you are taking the time to check your work. This is a real project, so you want to make sure that you are making positive contributions, because it has the potential to impact the company's business. You also want to make sure that you are managing expectations. So early on, you know, setting milestones, even for yourself, saying, okay, I plan to have this done by this date, so I can have this done by this date, so I can meet that final deadline date, is going to be really important, because you want to make sure that you are on track to be able to turn that in on time. And if issues do arise, do not hesitate to reach out to the company and let us know, because we want to assist. That communication is so unbelievably key. So we don't want you to be afraid or hesitate to reach out to companies, but we do encourage you, if you have a question, to take just a quick few minutes before you reach out to the company and see if you can't find the answer yourself. Now, again, we don't want you to hesitate to reach out to your supervisor. That pipeline is there for a reason. But sometimes we find that students are able to find those answers if they do just a little bit of digging, and that little bit of extra initiative can really make you stand out. And then finally, make sure you're focusing on the bigger context of your project. And if you don't understand the bigger context, make sure you ask your micro-internship supervisor at the company. And the reason for that is, one, understanding the purpose of what you're doing may have an impact on how you go about doing it. So it can help you deliver a better project. And it just helps you understand what you're working on, so you can articulate that better on your resume later and articulate it to future opportunities as well, the impact that your project had. And then after the project, we have a whole post-micro internship checklist with the goal of helping you make the most out of this project possible. This includes things like reviewing your feedback, reflecting on what you liked or didn't like about the project, the industry, the department, the company, updating your resume and LinkedIn. We've got tips and examples for exactly how you should be adding this to your resume. Specifically, because we are the employer of record, the fact that it needs to be listed as an independent consultant of Parker Dewey. Now, depending on the opportunity, you may be able to list the company's name, but you always want to make sure that you ask first. No matter what, you'll list you're an independent consultant of Parker Dewey, but depending on what the company says, you may be able to say in the description, did XYZ project for company name. Some companies, for one reason or another, just prefer anonymity. So you may instead say, did XYZ project for Fortune 500 industry name type company. But you always want to make sure that you ask. We also have templates for sharing your experience on LinkedIn, because you want to make sure you let other people know about what you've done and what you've accomplished, how to ask for a recommendation, how to keep in touch, how to apply for your next opportunity. Because again, we want you to use these micro internships as a step to something else. And then consider what you learned. We just really want you to use these to your best advantage. So here are some examples of some students and recent grads who have done just that. You can take a moment to read some of these stories. Everything from, I was doing a pivot from what I was studying in school, and micro internships helped me accomplish that. Micro internships helped me figure out what I wanted to be doing. Darren, for example, down on the bottom, was overwhelmed by his career choices, and micro internships have really helped him narrow it down. And Freya, the fact that micro internships were paid were really key for her. And then for these two examples, micro internships really made a difference in terms of getting attention for other opportunities that they were previously struggling to secure. So depending on what current issues you may be facing, either getting existing internship or experiential learning opportunities, or even prepping for that full-time job search, micro internships can really help. And we've got lots of other success stories from other students and recent grads. So if you are inspired by seeing other students do it and other recent grads do it, you can read these stories and see how these students and grads have used micro internships to accomplish their own unique goals. So hopefully at this point you're thinking, okay, I see how this can help me and I'm excited to get started. If that is the case, go ahead and create your account. Again, you can do this from parkerdewey.com or use the link in the tool. I'm going to go ahead and put the career launcher page right here in the chat if anyone just wants to go ahead and jump into getting started. Complete your profile just like we showed today. Again, the more complete your profile, the better your chances of being selected are. And then I know I've mentioned it before, but it is worth mentioning multiple times. Log in regularly. Again, if you log in today and you don't see something that's of interest, that's okay, because it does not mean that something that is right up your alley might not be on the platform tomorrow. So please log in regularly. I encourage everyone to read as many of these stories as you can. But I also really recommend Tegan's story because she put it better than I ever could. She said something that stands out about Parker Dewey Micro-Internships is it's the same as any other job search when it comes to, the numbers. You're not going to get every opportunity, but if you do see something that interests you, where Parker Dewey is different, it takes not even 15 minutes to write something up and apply for an opportunity that could have a big impact. Also, she used some of her money that she got from her projects to buy a puppy. So if you like puppies, you should totally check out the pictures. And then if you see something that does interest you, make sure you are applying to those projects right away, because again, they move quickly. And speaking of moving quickly, I encourage folks to join our Parker Dewey Career Launchers group on LinkedIn. If we have projects that are really moving fast, maybe we don't have time to send an email out about, sometimes we'll post about them on there. We have other tips and tricks and updates about different events. So it's just a great way to be kept up to date about the things that are going on. So that is our presentation for today. If anyone has questions or thoughts, okay, I see one in the chat. I've seen posts where the start date has long passed. Does that mean the opportunity is still open? Fantastic question. And yes, the answer is yes. As long as the project is still on the platform, that just means the company's plans for when they were going to kick off have gotten derailed a little bit. And we actually have plans in place. We're going to get some more company reminders going, so they update that. But as long as the project is still up, that means it has not been filled and it is still worth your time to apply. Fantastic question. If anybody has any other questions, I am here and happy to answer. But that has been overall our presentation for today. So hopefully we will see everyone on the platform applying for projects, and hopefully we'll be sharing some success stories about some of you soon.